Welcome to the 700 Club. A major case involving schools and religious freedom goes before the Supreme Court today. The key issue, allowing parents to remove their young children from classes with books containing LGBTQ content.
The High Court's ruling could have far-reaching effects on schools across the country. Wendy Griffith has the story.
Parents in Montgomery County, Maryland, want to pull their children out of elementary school classes when they use books that depict LGBTQ stories and themes, with many saying it violates their religious faith. But the county school system refused to accommodate the parents and would not allow them to opt out of those classes. Lower courts agreed, so the parents, including Christians, Jews, and Muslims, took their case to court. The outcome is now in the hands of the Supreme Court, who in recent years have repeatedly sided with claims of religious discrimination.
All we wanted is the accommodation, not necessarily to ban the books or remove the books as it's been reported.
The controversy started in 2022 after the school board approved several books for pre-K and kindergartners. The list included My Rainbow, about a black transgender girl whose mother creates a special wig to match her identity. Uncle Bobby's Wedding, where a young girl's uncle marries another man.
F for feathers, for flags, and for fun.
And Pride Puppy, an alphabet book following a family and their dog at a pride parade.
It's really important for us to center LGBTQ plus voices.
In court papers, the school district compares the materials to classic fairy tales, arguing the storybooks are no more sex education than stories like Cinderella and Snow White. And although the material is labeled as language arts, some parents say the content is very sexual and too much for young children.
I'm here to tell them my 7-year-old daughter, she's not ready for this.
In terms of what they have faced in Montgomery County and what potentially the Supreme Court could hold, it will implicate at what point may schools infringe upon the rights of parents, both in terms of teaching the children their own faith and also in directing in the upbringing of their children.
Montgomery County did stop using Pride Puppy and My Rainbow, but the other controversial books remain. The school claimed the opt-outs created too many problems, but supporters say it shouldn't be difficult to let parents pull kids from those classes. School districts nationwide are closely watching this case, which could set a precedent for similar disputes involving parental rights in the future. Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Clearly, this is a case of indoctrination because these books, I mean, you look at them and they're aimed not just at school-age children, they're aimed at preschool. And so you've got to ask the question, why? Why are you trying to indoctrinate a whole generation in this? And shouldn't parents have the power and the right to say, no, not for my child, I don't want my child exposed to that. They're way too young for this kind of information. Well, it's up to the Supreme Court, and like so many things in our country, to have the Supreme Court be the ultimate decider of our culture is frankly frightening to me. It's not something I think was ever intended by the framers. But here we are, and it's up to families to join together to say we have to sue our own school board and we have to sue our own school system to stop this indoctrination, and only the Supreme Court can save us from it. We'll see. It's a case that we will be closely watching. In other news, Harvard is taking the Trump administration to court to stop the White House's freeze on federal funds. John Jessup has that story and more from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. Harvard filing that lawsuit after the administration's anti-Semitism task force cut $2.2 billion in grants. The White House has argued universities allowed anti-Semitism to go unchecked at campus protests against Israel's war in Gaza. The suit also came after the administration announced plans to pull an additional $1 billion in grants from Harvard. The school says it's committed to addressing anti-Semitism and intellectual freedom. But critics disagree, with some pointing out that Harvard ranks dead last for free speech from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. And one student paper publicizing the rarity of conservative professors at Harvard published a 2021 column called An Endangered Species: The Scarcity of Harvard's Conservative Faculty. Well, the measles have now spread to 9 states, including Montana. That development coming after cases were reported in recent days in Louisiana, Missouri, and Virginia. So far, some 800 cases have been reported this year, with nearly 600 of those in Texas alone. Already this year, the United States has more than double the number of measles cases it saw in all of 2024. Health experts fear the virus will take hold in other U.S. communities with low vaccination rates, and that the spread could stretch on for a year. Well, turning now to the Middle East, Israel is urging citizens around the world to be vigilant today as pro-Palestinian groups have called for a global day of rage. Meanwhile, Israel is gearing up for a final round of attacks against key Hamas locations. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Pro-Palestinian groups are calling for this day of rage today to protest the ongoing war in Gaza. Israeli officials warn that Jewish travelers around the world could be targeted and violently attacked, as they have been in recent months. They're advising travelers not to display Jewish symbols or signs and to stay away from protest areas. Here in the Middle East, in Gaza, Israel Defense Forces are launching what could be the final push against Hamas strongholds. Flares visible from Israel light up the night sky as the IDF prepares to strike enemy targets. The terrorists have been pushed into more isolated and shrinking enclaves. They're often hiding in the tent cities of Gaza's displaced civilians, putting those civilians at more risk than ever as the IDF goes after the terrorists.
Over the past 72 hours, Israel's Air Force has struck 200 terror targets across Gaza. Amongst those are launch and sniper posts, weapons depots, and terror compounds. Ground forces dismantled terror infrastructure in Rafah, Tel al-Sultan, and Shabora, uncovering weapons caches and eliminating several terrorists.
Even as Hamas announces its plans to recruit 30,000 new fighters, it's having trouble paying those already in the ranks. Hamas was making much of its money by stealing and then selling humanitarian aid, but that cash flow has been drying up since the IDF cut off aid deliveries several weeks ago. Some in Israel advocate ending the war to get the remaining hostages back. But Israel's prime minister says while the return of the hostages is a top priority and negotiations are still underway, Hamas must be crushed to prevent more hostages from being taken in the future.
If we do not complete the destruction of Hamas military and governmental capabilities, the next October 7 and the next kidnappings are only a matter of time. Hamas says they will do it, they intend to do it, and they're working to do it.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
All right, thank you, Julie. Gordon?
It's a shame that Jewish travelers, whether in Europe, here in the United States, throughout the world, that they have to be on guard because some group has announced a day of rage against them, that they're worthy to be attacked anywhere that they are. Truth has been stood on its head in this whole conflict, that somehow or other Israel is engaged in a genocide. No, it's Hamas. And they've publicly said it. It was in their founding document that they want to wipe Israel off the map and they want to kill Jews. And they've been very upfront with that. When you listen to what the imams are preaching in the mosque on the West Bank, when you listen to that in Arabic and get a translation, it's quite clear what they intend to do. They're asking Allah to number the Jews so that they can be killed. When you look at what Hezbollah put out for so long, it was all designed to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews living there. And somehow or other, we've gotten involved in this propaganda campaign where, no, it's Israel engaged in genocide. Not at all. It's never been that way. When you defend yourself against a horrific attacks, and your attacker is saying, I'm going to attack you again and again and again until you no longer exist. Well, the whole world should pay attention to that and realize that's real. That's not some made-up thing. That is real. These are real facts. And until Hamas surrenders, lays down all their arms, releases all the hostages, well, then Israel has every right to pursue them and to eliminate them. That is their right of self-defense. It's recognized under international law. Hamas is the bad actor here, not Israel.